This series of events happened about 7 years ago. It was around 4 a.m., and I was outside my small duplex apartment, unwinding from a long day, with a cigarette in one hand and the last half of a blunt in the other. I worked 12-hour shifts and kept a strange schedule, so being awake while everyone else slept wasn't unusual. In those quiet hours, I often felt like the only person alive in the world. Occasionally, I'd chat with my upstairs neighbour. She was probably in her early 60s, kind-hearted but frail. She'd suffered a stroke some years back and didn't have any close family. Most nights she kept to herself, but sometimes we'd talk briefly if she couldn't sleep. She's not the focus of this story, but she'll be important later. That night was almost completely silent, the kind of stillness that makes every little sound stand out. As I sat there under the dim porch light, I heard footsteps, slow and deliberate, coming from the alley nearby. That grabbed my attention instantly. The alley ran along the side of the duplex and was partially hidden by tall bushes growing along my neighbour's fence, so I couldn't see who it was right away. Then, a voice called out from the dark. "Gonna bum a smoke, bro?" I called back. "Sure, no problem." As the person came into view, I was caught a little off guard. He was a short man, maybe late 20s, and dressed in flashy urban-style clothes. Definitely not the sort of attire you usually saw in our sleepy little Ohio town. He seemed like he was from a city, maybe even recently. I want to be careful how I say this, but I think it's important context. I'm mixed, black and white, with long waist-length dreads and a pretty unique look for this area. This guy, a dark-skinned black man, was clearly an outsider in a place where anyone not white and corn-fed tends to stick out. The only real diversity around here comes from the local college students, who mostly keep to themselves and rarely stray far from the bars or campus. As soon as he saw the blunt in my hand, his eyes lit up. I passed it over without hesitation, and he seemed instantly more relaxed. We started chatting, and oddly enough, hit it off pretty quickly. Despite my social anxiety, my default belief is that I sound dumb or awkward. I found myself talking more than usual. I eventually asked how he ended up in a random alley in the middle of nowhere at 4 a.m. That's when things got strange. He told me he came to Ohio from somewhere down south. He mentioned a state, but I've since forgotten which one. According to him, some people down there had hyped up rural Ohio as a gold mine for drugs and easy hustles. That part, unfortunately, isn't completely false. He thought he could come up here, make quick money and disappear. But right after arriving, he said he went out drinking with 2 women he'd met. Things got tense when he started flirting with other women at the bar. The original 2 didn't take it well. They argued, stormed out, and later kicked him out of the car, literally threw him and all his stuff out on the side of the road. He'd also apparently burned through all his money buying drugs. That part he admitted outright, though he framed it like he was a victim of circumstance. He went on to tell me he had a history of getting arrested and even being shot at, though he claimed it was all due to baby mama drama. At this point, I was just nodding and listening, trying to be polite. He launched into prison stories, how he once defended a fellow inmate and earned the respect of a gang member, whose brother later taught him how to cook meth as a form of repayment. He talked like he had grand plans to start a new hustle here in town, but that life wasn't for me, not anymore. I had a newborn at home, a partner I loved, and a job that kept me grounded. My past wasn't spotless. I went through a wannabe rapper phase in the early 2000s, but I had outgrown all of that. 3 hours passed before I realized it. The guy kept talking, showing no signs of leaving. I'm too polite for my own good, so I just sat there. Eventually, my partner, now my wife, stepped outside to see what was going on. Her face said everything. Confused, uncomfortable. Her presence made things awkward enough that the guy finally left. A few hours later, I got a knock on the door. I'd barely slept. It was my downstairs neighbor telling me, "Hey, your friend's outside. He says he's waiting for you." Sure enough, he was back. Said he wanted to chill, maybe make some calls or find a ride. A year prior, I probably would have hung out, smoked him out even. But now, with a baby and a partner to protect, I couldn't do that anymore. He still talked to me like we were lifelong friends, which made it harder. I could tell he was clinging to that thin thread of human connection. And I'll admit, I felt bad for him. He looked so out of place in our small, mostly white, close-minded town. People already treated me like an outsider. I knew what he must have been feeling, amplified tenfold. When I asked where his belongings were, he went back into the alley and came out with trash bags and a large pink women's purse. Said some guy had seen him get dumped out of a car and gave him the bags out of pity. He tried to give me the purse for my lady. It felt weird, but I tried not to overthink it. I gave him a decent rolling suitcase I had lying around. He moved his stuff into it. One sweatshirt he wore looked way too small and didn't match his style. It seemed stolen, honestly. Still, I brushed it off. I made him a quick meal, gave him $20, and hoped he'd be on his way. He wandered off, looking for women to crash with, or another ride, or another hustle. That night, it got bitter cold. I stepped outside again, and there he was, just standing there, shivering, rubbing his hands together. He looked miserable. I wanted to let him crash on the couch, but with a baby and my partner inside, I couldn't take that risk. Instead, I grabbed some blankets, Hot Pockets, and snacks. Let him sleep in the garage we shared with the neighbors. The next morning, they found him and were not pleased. He told them he was my cousin, which obviously wasn't true. They confronted me. I half lied, said he just needed a place to stay. I left out the meth stories and prison talk. I knew I had to get him gone, especially since I'd be at work and couldn't leave him near my family. I went online, found a bus ticket for that afternoon, and told him I'd buy it and drive him there. He was genuinely grateful. Then came another odd moment. He showed me a broken security camera and offered to sell it. It didn't feel right. I didn't want it. I told him no, gave him another $20, and wished him well. A few hours later, I heard police radios outside my window. I was already halfway downstairs before they knocked. The officer, surprisingly calm and professional, told me they had recovered my wife's stolen bike. He asked about the guy. Turns out, when they picked him up, he described me as a tall white guy with a mohawk. I think he was trying to protect me, keep me out of it. I told the truth. I met him by chance. He stayed around a few days. I gave him food and money, and was trying to buy him a ticket out of town. I didn't mention the meth stuff or any shady details. I was terrified they'd think I was involved. I looked the part, tattoos, long dreads, hoodies. I figured they'd assume the worst, but then the neighbor woman, the one who'd had a stroke, told the officers I was kind, respectful, a good father, that I never had trouble or strange guests. Her words probably saved me. The officer said I'd been smart not to let him inside the house. They gave us the bike back. Turns out, the man had been robbing homes, right in the neighborhood. Clothes, electronics, and allegedly women's underwear and sex toys were among the stolen items. I didn't want to believe it at first, but I later found out one of the people he'd robbed was a co-worker of mine. So yeah, lesson learned. Don't share your cigs or your kindness with strangers at 4 a.m. You never really know who you're talking to or what they're running from.